So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto became a grand servant to conquer the Holy Grail or Naruto x Artoria Pendragon, Fate Stay Night. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. The Grand Overture. The sky over Fuyuki City screamed. It didn't just rumble or flash. It tore itself apart with a primeval shriek that clawed at the very fabric of reality. Tonight, the familiar scent of rain-soaked asphalt and exhaust fumes was over. Elmed by the acrid tang of ozone and something far older, something raw and unstable, like a wound in the ether. Buildings, usually stoic sentinels against the urban sprawl, seemed to shiver. Windows rattled like chattering teeth, and the rhythmic thrum of the city's heart, its ceaseless energy, pulsed with an irregular, feverish beat. Below, the storm raged with a furious, almost sentient intensity. Rain lashed down in sheets, blurring the neon glow of storefronts into impressionistic smears of color. Gutters overflowed, turning quiet alleyways into rushing torrents. Every clap of thunder wasn't just a sound. It was a physical blow, vibrating through the concrete, deep into the bones of those unfortunate enough to be caught outside. At the epicenter of this cosmic tantrum, high above the Fuyuki church, a singularity formed. It wasn't a void, but rather an impossibly bright, golden light, coalescing from swirling currents of emerald green and cerulean blue energy. Mana, in its purest, most untamed form, bled from this tear. Arcing wildly across the heavens, striking rooftops and sending showers of sparks cascading down like inverted meteor showers. This wasn't a localized phenomenon. The entire city pulsed with it. A collective gasp before an unknown, terrifying birth. Then, with a final, earth-shattering crack that eclipsed even the thunder, a figure materialized within the blinding core of the singularity. He didn't just appear. He was forged from the very storm, energy swirling around him like a second skin. He hung suspended for a moment, an ethereal silhouette against the blinding gold, before gravity. Remembering its forgotten duty, asserted its claim. He fell, but it wasn't a desperate, plummeting descent. It was a controlled, almost casual glide through the tempest. His silhouette, now clearer against the backdrop of the city lights below, resolved into a lean, powerful form clad in an unfamiliar, yet strangely comforting, orange and black attire. A long, tattered cloak, the color of a midnight sky, billowed behind him, snapping like a war banner in the gale. Golden hair, defying the deluge, stood up in defiant spikes, framing a face etched with a mix of fierce concentration and a surprising hint of curiosity. Naruto Uzumaki. He wasn't merely summoned, he was manifested. The Holy Grail, or whatever broken husk of it remained, hadn't chosen him as a conventional servant. It had begged for him, pulling him across dimensions, not through a ritual circle, but through a rent in spacetime itself, like a panicked hand reaching for salvation. And he, in turn, had answered. Not because he understood the precise mechanics, but because he sensed the profound wrongness, the pain of a world being consumed from within. His descent slowed further, a subtle shimmer of golden-green energy rippling around him. He landed with the softest thud atop the highest spire of the Fuyuki church, a monument to faith now bathed in the chaotic glow of his arrival. His boots, worn but sturdy, found purchase on the rain-slicked stone. He stood there, legs slightly bent, hands resting loosely at his sides, utterly unfazed by the raging tempest, a serene eye in the heart of the storm. "All right," he murmured, his voice a low rumble, surprisingly clear over the howling wind, that was, a bit more dramatic than just stepping through a portal. He sniffed the air, a complex mix of electricity, damp stone, and something metallic and bitter. And this place feels sick. He extended a hand, palm open, and a miniature Rasengan, barely larger than a marble, formed in his palm. Swirling with the quiet fury of a contained typhoon. He wasn't preparing to attack. He was sampling the energy, absorbing the chaotic mana, analyzing its composition with an instinctual draw. That bypassed complex magical theories. His brow furrowed. Yeah, definitely sick. Like a massive chakra network that's been infected. Below, unseen by him in the immediate chaos, the Holy Grail war had been momentarily paused. Not by truce, but by sheer, overwhelming awe and confusion. In a hidden, luxurious penthouse suite overlooking the city, Rin Tasaka stood rigid before a wall of monitors. Her normally impeccable black hair slightly disheveled, her crimson blazer discarded on a chair. Her striking blue eyes, usually alight with a sharp, calculating intelligence, were wide with disbelief, reflecting the blinding golden light outside. "What in the hells?" she breathed, her voice barely a whisper, a stark contrast to her usual confident pronouncements. Her magus crest, etched onto her arm, throbbed with a painful, unfamiliar pressure. The very air around her crackled, making her finely tuned circuits ache. "The summoning system it's gone rogue," Rin-sama, her familiar, a small, multifaceted crystal orb, chirped nervously, its usually steady light flickering like a dying ember. "Mana fluctuations are off the charts. We're detecting a resonance signature unlike anything in the Mages Association archives." Rin ignored it. Her gaze was fixed on the figure silhouetted atop the church spire. "That's not a servant summoning," she muttered, her mind racing, discarding every logical explanation. Servants appeared in circles, with ritual. This was an act of raw, unfiltered creation. That's a natural phenomenon. Or something far beyond our understanding. She clutched a fist, her nails digging into her palm. She had spent years preparing for this. Every calculation, every spell, every contingency plan. And then this happened. An uncontrolled variable of such magnitude that it threatened to invalidate everything she knew about magecraft, about the Holy Grail War itself. A flicker of frustration, sharp and hot, flared in her chest, quickly followed by a cold, thrilling dread. This was dangerous. This was unprecedented. And it was, she admitted with a reluctant curl of her lips, utterly fascinating. "Saber," she commanded, her voice regaining its usual steel, "identify that anomaly. Immediately. If it's hostile, engage with extreme prejudice." Meanwhile, across town, in the desolate skeletal remains of the Fuyuki City Manufacturing District, a different kind of battle raged. The air here was thick with the scent of stagnant water, decaying metal, and the putrid stench of corrupted mana. Twisted, grotesque figures, born from the Holy Grail's pervasive sickness, shambled through the wreckage. They were not true familiars or servants, but abominations, their forms shifting, their cries a discordant chorus of agony and malice. Artoria Pendragon, the King of Knights, Saber of the Fifth Holy Grail War, moved through the chaos like a beacon of silver and blue. Her azure battle dress was already stained with the ichor of the corrupted beasts, her blonde hair, usually meticulously tied, now fell in damp strands around her determined face. Her invisible blade, Excalibur, whistled through the air, carving arcs of light through the oppressive darkness, dispelling the abominations with swift, merciless strikes. She was formidable, a paragon of chivalry and power. Yet, a subtle tension resonated within her, a quiet desperation. These creatures, these warped manifestations of the Grail's corruption, were unlike anything she had faced. They were endless, formless, and seemed to mock the very ideals she embodied. She fought with the honor of a knight. But the grim reality was that her efforts felt like trying to empty a flood with a teacup. "They just keep coming," she murmured, her breath misting in the frigid air, her voice strained. Her master was too far away, too focused on the systemic anomaly in the city center, leaving her to face this growing tide alone. Her noble intent clashed with the practical impossibility of endless combat. Doubt, a subtle but insidious poison, gnawed at the edges of her resolve. Was this what the Holy Grail War had truly become? A meaningless struggle against an unseen, cancerous evil? Just as a particularly large, amorphous mass of shadow and blighted energy lunged at her, its maw descending into a horrific parody of a scream, a ripple of golden energy, impossibly fast, lanced through the air. It wasn't a spell, or a beam. It was a pure, concussive wave, utterly dispelling the abomination before it could even touch her. The foul stench dissipated instantly, replaced by the clean, sharp scent of ozone. Artoria froze, her invisible blade held high. Her sapphire eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the immediate vicinity. She saw nothing, yet felt an immense, benevolent presence wash over her. Like the warmth of the sun breaking through storm clouds, the oppressive air of corruption, which had clung to her like a shroud, lifted, making her breathe easier for the first time in hours. A faint, almost imperceptible thump reached her ears. It wasn't the sound of thunder or rain. It was the sound of someone landing. Her gaze shot to the highest point she could perceive through the rain-shrouded broken skyline, the Fuyuki church spire. And there he stood, a figure silhouetted against the lingering golden glow in the sky, utterly still, radiating an aura that spoke of power beyond comprehension, yet simultaneously an unsettling serenity. "By the sacred blade," she whispered, her voice tinged with genuine awe. Her instincts, honed by countless battles, screamed that this was no ordinary servant. No ordinary anything. He felt ancient, yet vibrant. Immense, yet approachable. He was a paradox wrapped in an enigma, and he had just effortlessly cleansed a significant portion of the blighted mana around her. Without even looking, a deep, resonating hum started to emanate from the figure on the spire, not a sound but a sensation, a vibration that settled deep in her chest. It wasn't aggressive, but it was undoubtedly powerful. It felt like the earth itself was drawing a deep, cleansing breath. The remaining corrupted creatures in the district, previously relentless, now recoiled. Their forms flickering and shrinking as if in pain. Some simply evaporated into wisps of black smoke. Naruto, still atop the spire, turned his head slightly, his gaze sweeping across the industrial district. Even through the torrential rain, his eyes, the color of a summer sky, seemed to pierce through the gloom, taking in the full scope of the corruption. He saw Artoria, standing amidst the fading shadows, a knight in distress, yet radiating an undeniable nobility even in her exhaustion. A gentle sigh escaped him. "Man, this is worse than I thought," he muttered to himself, then, raising his voice slightly, surprisingly clear and carrying over the wind, he called out, "Hey! You down there, you look like you could use a hand, huh?" Artoria blinked. The sheer casualness of his address, after such a grand and terrifying entrance, was jarring. It was as if he had just stepped out for groceries, not ripped a hole in the universe. She gripped Excalibur tighter, her posture shifting from awe to caution. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice firm, despite the slight tremble of fatigue. "State your identity, servant, or I shall consider you hostile." Naruto chuckled, a genuine, UNBURDENED sound that seemed to chase away some of the storm's oppressive weight. He pushed off the spire, not falling, but gliding gracefully, the golden energy around him flaring briefly before settling into a warm, inviting glow. He landed a mere 50 feet from her, boots making barely a sound on the waterlogged ground. The invisible force field around his person deflected the rain, leaving him perfectly dry. He grinned, a wide, genuine, utterly disarming smile that somehow managed to be both incredibly powerful and almost boyish. "Servant, huh? Nah, not really. More like a grand helper, I guess." He rubbed the back of his neck. "A habit from a world away. Name's Naruto Uzumaki. And you're, kinda drenched, princess." Artoria's jaw tightened. "Princess," she exclaimed, her voice rising in indignation. No one, absolutely no one, had dared to address her with such insolence, especially not a combatant on the battlefield. Her pride, her very identity, felt challenged. "I am Artoria Pendragon, King of Knights. And I demand to know your class, your master, and your intentions in this Holy Grail war." Naruto tilted his head, his smile unwavering, but his eyes, now that she was closer, held a surprising depth. A wisdom that belied his casual demeanor. "King of Knights, huh? Pretty cool. But you're still soaked." He waved a hand, and a small puff of golden energy, like a warm breath, washed over Artoria. Instantly, her clothes were dry, her hair seemed to shed its dampness, and the lingering chill left her bones. It wasn't magic as she knew it, it was something far more fundamental. A manipulation of forces that bypassed her understanding. Artoria stared, bewildered. The simple act, utterly devoid of any threat, yet so powerful in its execution, disarmed her more than any attack could have. What was that?" she asked, her voice hushed. "Just airing you out," Naruto replied, still grinning. "Look, I don't really have a class, or a master, in the way you guys do things. I just kinda got here. Something's really wrong with this Grail thing, right? It feels all messed up, like a bad chakra flow. I'm here to fix it." He gestured vaguely at the lingering remnants of corruption, then at the sky. "That whole dramatic entrance. Yeah, that was the world basically screaming for help." Artoria narrowed her eyes. Fix it. The Holy Grail is a sacred ritual. It is something to be fixed by an unknown entity. Well, it's definitely broken, King of Knights, Naruto countered, his tone still light, but with an underlying current of serious intent. Those things you were fighting. Not exactly standard Grail warfare, are they? And that weird feeling in the sky. That's the system itself falling apart. I felt it calling, and where I come from, when something screams, you answer. His straightforwardness was disarming. Artoria had met countless mages and servants, all shrouded in mystery, intrigue, and hidden agendas. Naruto, despite his impossible power and entrance, was utterly, disarmingly direct. It was almost refreshing. Almost. Her knightly code, however, still demanded caution. And if you are not a servant, then you are a rogue element, she stated, her blade still poised. Though her stance had relaxed marginally. A threat to the established order. Naruto sighed, a sound of mild exasperation. Look, I get it. New guy, flashy entrance, talks funny. But if I wanted to be a threat, you'd be seeing a lot more than just me drying your clothes. He gestured around the vast, wrecked industrial zone. We got bigger problems than who's calling who, princess. These things, he pointed at a dissolving patch of shadow, they're just symptoms. The real problem is deeper. He then did something completely unexpected. He walked past her, towards a particularly dense patch of blighted energy that pulsed with malevolent intent. Artoria tensed, ready to intervene, but he didn't attack. Instead, he simply extended his hand, and a soft, golden light emanated from his palm. Not destructive, but purifying. The corrupted energy recoiled, hissed, and then began to dissipate, dissolving into nothingness, leaving behind clean air. He worked with an effortless grace, cleansing the landscape as if he were simply sweeping dust. Artoria watched, mesmerized. Her blade was meant to destroy, his power seemed to mend. It was an almost divine ability. Something she had only read about in the oldest, purest legends. He wasn't simply fighting evil, he was eradicating its very essence. The Holy Grail war has been corrupted, she finally admitted, her voice softer. The indignation replaced by a somber realization. These abominations, they are indeed not from any known servant class. My master is gravely concerned, but our intelligence is limited. Naruto turned, his work momentarily paused. Limited, huh, well, lucky for you, I've got a nose for bad things. And this, Grail, feels like it's been sick for a long time, probably festering before this war even started. I need to get to the root of it. And for that, I'm going to need information. And maybe a map. My internal GPS is a bit fuzzy in this dimension. He offered her his hand, his grin returning. So, how about an alliance, Artoria Pendragon, King of Knights? You got the local knowledge, I got the punch it until it gets better, power. Plus, I don't think I'm gonna be running out of mana anytime soon, so that's a plus, right? Artoria stared at his outstretched hand. It was an offer, unburdened by pretense, open and honest. It was also an offer of companionship, of shared burden. From a being of unfathomable power who treated her as an equal, despite his casual address. The last hour, the last day, had been filled with endless, draining combat and gnawing doubt. This man, Naruto Uzumaki, had arrived like a golden lightning bolt, cut through the corruption, and offered a simple solution to an impossible problem. Her analytical mind, trained for strategy and combat, was still reeling, but her heart, the heart of a knight sworn to protect, felt a strange, resonant echo. He was not just powerful, he was good. Unwaveringly, undeniably good. Slowly, deliberately, Artoria sheathed Excalibur. The sound of metal sliding into its scabbard was a soft clang in the still raging storm. She took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and surprisingly gentle. Very well, Naruto Uzumaki, she said, her voice regaining its regal composure. If your intentions are truly to cleanse this blight, then the King of Knights shall stand with you. But understand, should you stray from the path of righteousness, my blade will be your judgment. Naruto just squeezed her hand. Wouldn't have it any other way, King of Knights. Now, which way to the biggest library around here? Or maybe a good ramen stand. I'm starving after that trip. Artoria blinked. Ramen. This individual was truly unique. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Our sight in the grim reality of the Holy Grail War. The sky still screamed, but for the first time, a sliver of hope cut through the storm. Meanwhile, far above, in her meticulously warded observation deck, Rin Tasaka watched the entire exchange unfold through highly specialized optical magecraft. Her initially cynical frown had slowly transformed into an expression of intense fascination, bordering on grudging admiration. He just dried her clothes, she muttered, a hint of incredulity in her voice. And he's calling Saber, princess. The sheer nerve. The crystal familiar projected a holographic display showing Naruto's mana signature. It was colossal, unlike anything it had ever registered. Not just large, but dynamic, shifting, almost intelligent. It pulsed with a fundamental energy. Why that dwarfed even the strongest servants. Mana output is off the charts, Rin-sama. The familiar chirped excitedly. His presence is stabilizing local ley lines, purifying ambient mana, and his energy signature is fluctuating. As if adapting to our world's magical parameters. It's truly unprecedented. Rin ignored the familiar's effusive data. Her eyes were fixed on the interaction between Naruto and Artoria. The effortless grace, the disarming smile, the casual conversation with the King of Knights herself. It was all so utterly illogical, yet so undeniably effective. He hadn't fought Artoria, he had simply convinced her. And that wasn't how servants or masters operated. He's not a servant, then, Rin mused aloud, her fingers tapping her chin. He's something else entirely. Something beyond classification. And he just effortlessly garnered the loyalty of Saber, a servant notorious for her unwavering convictions. A slow, calculating smile spread across Rin's face. Her innate frustration had completely evaporated, replaced by a surge of renewed ambition. This wasn't a problem. This was an opportunity. A massive, unpredictable, incredibly powerful opportunity. A wild road that could shatter the entire Holy Grail War and perhaps redefine magecraft itself. The Holy Grail is indeed corrupted, she confirmed, reviewing data streams that showed the pervasive blight she'd been tracking. And if he intends to fix it, then his goals align with ours, at least for now. She straightened, her posture regaining its usual elegant defiance. Fascinating. Utterly, infuriatingly, utterly fascinating. She pulled out her communication device, a sleek, arcane piece of technology. Trace his location precisely. Track his every move. I want a complete tactical assessment, every possible weakness, every potential advantage. We're going to observe him closely. Very, very closely. And then, we'll make our move. Her lips curved into a sharp, predatory smile. Naruto Uzumaki. He was a force of chaos. An unknown variable, and a potential game changer. And Rin Tasaka, pragmatist and genius that she was, intended to exploit every single one of those facets. Perhaps, she thought, this Holy Grail War just got a lot more interesting. And a lot less predictable. A thrill, sharp and exhilarating, coursed through her veins. This was the kind of challenge she lived for. The initial chaotic resonance of Naruto's arrival began to subside, not through natural dissipation, but through his unconscious influence. The air gradually lost its acrid bite, the thunder softened from a roar to a distant grumble. And the rain, while still persistent, settled into a steady, rhythmic patter. The city, still scarred by the Grail's sickness, seemed to breathe a little easier, almost as if a fever had broken. Naruto, now walking alongside Artoria through the waterlogged, debris-strewn streets of the industrial district, maintained his casual demeanor. He kicked idly at a piece of twisted rebar, sending splashes of muddy water arcing into the air. Artoria, despite her newfound, grudging alliance, kept a vigilant eye on him, her mind attempting to categorize and understand this impossible being. So, this Holy Grail War thing, Naruto began, breaking the silence, his voice surprisingly thoughtful. It's a big magic battle royale, right? 7 mages, 7 heroic spirits, fight for a wish-granting cup. Sounds simple enough, but this corruption feels like it's been festering for ages. Not just a recent thing. Artoria nodded, her expression grim. Indeed, the current state of the Grail is unprecedented. My master believes it has been tainted for generations, perhaps since its very inception in this land. It draws upon the despair and malice of humanity, rather than its pure desires. Makes sense. Naruto hummed, rubbing his chin. That's why those shadow things were so messed up. Like bad clones from a dark chakra source. My powers usually fix things like that on a fundamental level. But this is big. Like a global level genjutsu, or a sealed demon that's breaking out. Artoria almost stumbled. Genjutsu, chakra, demon, she repeated, her brow furrowing. These are not terms of magecraft I am familiar with. Naruto chuckled. Right. Different dimensions, different magic. Think of chakra like life energy, soul energy, magical energy, all rolled into one. And ninjutsu are the spells I cast with it. Genjutsu is like a powerful illusion, messing with your mind. And demons, well, where I'm from, we had some pretty big ones. His eyes took on a far-off, distant look for a moment. A fleeting shadow of immense, past struggles. Artoria observed him. He spoke of such concepts with a casualness that implied a profound intimacy with them. He was a warrior, undoubtedly, but also a healer, a purifier, and a strategist. The pieces of the puzzle that was Naruto Uzumaki were beginning to form, and they were unsettlingly contradictory. Yet, there was an undeniable honesty in his gaze. So, your goal is to cleanse the Grail? She asked, testing the waters. Yep, Naruto confirmed. Just like I cleaned up that mess back home. World's too big and too awesome to let something like this fester. Plus, if it gets too out of hand, it could spread. And nobody wants to deal with a reality-eating parasite, believe me. He shuddered slightly, an expression that seemed out of place on such a powerful being. It was genuine. You speak as if you have faced such threats before, Artoria noted, a hint of curiosity in her voice. Naruto's grin returned, wider this time. Oh, you have no idea. King of Knights. I've fought literal gods, giant angry furball monsters, crazy mad scientists, even my own best friend when he went a little off the rails. A corrupted cup, child's play. Well, maybe a particularly difficult child's play. He winked. Artoria found herself, against her better judgment, almost smiling. His unshakable confidence wasn't boastful, it was simply a statement of fact. Backed by his effortless power. He had no need to posture. His very presence was enough. He was a force of nature, untamed and unpredictable, yet strangely comforting. In his unwavering determination to do good. Tell me, Artoria began, changing the subject slightly, how did you come to possess such unique abilities? You are unlike any heroic spirit I have ever encountered, living or summoned. Naruto stopped, looking up at the still dark, but less malevolent, sky. Unique, huh, well, long story short, I was born with a giant fox demon sealed inside me. Ria nearly tripped over a piece of rubble. Her eyes widened, a flicker of genuine shock crossing her noble features. A demon, yep, 9 tails, fiery temperament, used to trash villages, Naruto elaborated cheerfully. As if discussing the weather. But we worked things out. He's actually a pretty good guy now. And being buddies with a walking natural disaster kind of gives you a power boost, you know. Plus, I trained my butt off. Like, seriously, years of blood, sweat, and ramen. Artoria stared at him, speechless. A demon, contained within a human. A concept utterly alien to her world's magecraft, yet here he stood. Radiating pure, untainted energy. He spoke of it with such casualness, as if it were a common occurrence. It challenged every fundamental belief she held about purity, about corruption, about heroism. Yet, looking at him, she saw no darkness, only light. You befriended a demon. She finally managed, her voice a strained whisper. Yeah, took some convincing, Naruto admitted, a nostalgic look in his eyes. He was lonely, hated, same as me, really. Just needed someone to understand him. Turns out, even a giant chakra beast just wants a friend. He shrugged. Point is, my powers come from combining my own chakra with his, and with natural energy from the world around us. It's called Sage Mode. Makes me super strong, super fast, and gives me this awesome glow. And I can sense pretty much anything, anywhere, which is why I know this Grail needs a serious talking to. His candid explanation, bizarre as it was, resonated with Artoria on a deeper level. He spoke of loneliness, of understanding, of friendship, concepts that, in her own life, had been fraught with pain and sacrifice. He had found a way to bridge the gap, to turn a source of destruction into a wellspring of power and understanding. It was a philosophy that, in its simplicity, was profoundly revolutionary. So, King of Knights, Naruto continued, oblivious to her internal turmoil, you got a safe place. We should probably lay low for a bit, figure out what's what. And then we hit that Grail like a Rasengan to the face. Artoria, still processing the sheer audacity and profound implications of his words, simply nodded. My master maintains a residence. It is secure, and perhaps we can ascertain more intelligence there. She paused, then added, almost reluctantly, and perhaps, food. I confess, combat leaves one rather peckish. Naruto's grin widened. Food, my man, I was hoping you'd say that. Tell me, do they have anything like Ichiraku ramen here? Best ramen in the world, hands down. Artoria had no idea what a ramen was, let alone an Ichiraku. But watching Naruto's unbridled enthusiasm for something as simple as food, after witnessing his world-shattering power, was endearing. She found herself, for the first time in a long time, looking forward to the quiet, mundane moments amidst the apocalyptic chaos. Far away, in the heart of Fuyuki's more upscale residential district, another eye was watching. Not Rin Tasaka's sophisticated magecraft, but the sharp, experienced gaze of an unknown observer. Perched silently on a rain-slicked gargoyle high above the sprawling city, a figure clad in dark, form-fitting tactical gear, utterly invisible to the naked eye, observed Naruto and Artoria. This was Kurohime. Her presence was a whisper on the wind, a shadow amongst shadows. She moved with an almost preternatural grace, blending seamlessly with the night, her movements fluid and silent. Her eyes, hidden behind an optical visor that gleamed faintly in the urban glow, were cold, analytical, and utterly devoid of emotion. She was an assassin, but not a conventional servant. She was a rogue spirit, perhaps one bound to the very ley lines of Fuyuki itself, a manifestation of the city's darker, forgotten history, or a specialized agent of a truly clandestine organization that operated beyond the Mages Association's purview. Her mission was simple: eliminate anomalies, maintain the balance of shadows, and if the balance broke, capitalize on the chaos. Naruto's arrival had been a massive disruption. She had felt the surge of raw energy, the tearing of dimensions. Even from her distant vantage point, it was an anomaly of the highest order, an event that threatened her entire operational paradigm. Her initial instinct was to eliminate the unknown factor. But then she watched him. She saw him effortlessly purge the corrupted mana, a cleansing ability that defied any known magecraft. She observed his interaction with Artoria, noting the easy camarade Rai he forged where others would demand subservience. She analyzed his energy signature, vast, volatile, yet controlled with an almost innocent ease. Unconventional, she murmured, her voice a low, gravelly whisper, barely audible over the patter of rain. Her native tongue was not Japanese, but a harsh, ancient cadence, subtly distorted by some unknown past. Dangerous, and fascinating. Her targets were always simple: eliminate, extract, observe. But this Naruto Uzumaki, he defied simple categorization. He radiated a potent light that, by all rights, should be anathema to her shadowy existence. Yet, it didn't repel her. It intrigued her. It presented a challenge, a variable that could either destroy her world or redefine it. She pulled out a small, sleek device, not unlike a modern smartphone. But its interface glowed with cryptic glyphs and real-time energy readouts. She logged the event, adding a new, highly prioritized target to her dossier. But beneath the cold, professional entry, a flicker of something else ignited. Curiosity, a dangerous emotion for an assassin. He had talked about fixing the Grail, about cleansing the sickness. This aligned with a deeper, unspoken agenda she sometimes entertained, a desire for a return to equilibrium, a balance that the Holy Grail war had long since shattered. Perhaps, she mused, this grand helper could be useful. Or perhaps, he was simply another fool playing a dangerous game. She melted back into the shadows, a wraith in the urban night, her presence evaporating as silently as it had appeared. She would observe, she would learn, and then, she would decide. The chess pieces on Fuyuki's board had just gained a powerful, unpredictable new player, and Kurohime was already adjusting her strategy. The scent of ozone lingered in the air, a constant reminder of his arrival, a scent she found herself, unexpectedly, drawn to. The sky, now a bruised canvas of deep purples and stormy grays, seemed to hold its breath. The torrential rain had subsided into a steady drizzle, washing the city clean, yet leaving behind a palpable tension. Naruto, Artoria, and now a wary Rin, had congregated in a partially sheltered alcove. Near the outskirts of the industrial zone, a place Artoria had deemed relatively safe for a momentary halt. Rin, having followed their energy signatures, had materialized moments before, her presence heralded by the subtle shimmer of a boundary field and the faint scent of arcane salts. So, Rin began, her arms crossed, her eyes narrowed as she regarded Naruto. You're the anomaly that just tore a hole in the sky and rattled the foundations of the Mages Association. Care to explain yourself, stranger? Her tone was sharp, analytical, laced with an undeniable edge of suspicion. Her gaze flickered between Naruto and Artoria, as if trying to decipher the unholy alliance. Naruto merely offered her his characteristic disarming grin. Rin Tasaka, right, the one with the amazing mana readings and the really cool eyes. He had picked up her name from Artoria's earlier, hurried mental query to her master. His innate ability to sense and categorize energy signatures also extended to the unique magical crests of masters. Rin's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. How do you know my name? She demanded, a flash of surprise overriding her usual composure. Her crest, usually hidden, felt suddenly exposed. Relax, I'm not a mind reader, Naruto chuckled. Just got a knack for figuring things out. And your energy signature is practically screaming, Master, powerful, and slightly annoyed. Plus, Artoria mentioned you. He gestured vaguely between the two women. So, you guys working together or what? Artoria stepped forward slightly. Rin Tasaka is my master, albeit one who prioritizes strategy over direct confrontation at times. Her tone was neutral, but a hint of underlying tension was clear. Oh, I prioritize efficiency, Saber, Rin countered, her eyes flashing at Artoria. Unlike some, I don't believe in wasting mana on reckless charges. She then turned her full attention back to Naruto, her expression a mix of skepticism and calculating curiosity. So, Grand Helper, as you call yourself, you claim to be here to fix the Grail. A rather ambitious declaration from someone who doesn't even possess a proper class. Naruto shrugged. Class or no class, the Grail's sick. I can feel it. It's radiating bad vibes like a poisoned river. And those things I just cleared out. They're not normal servant fodder. They're like festering wounds. He knelt, picking up a shard of jagged, corrupted rock that pulsed with a faint, malevolent light. He held it in his palm, and slowly, a soft, golden glow enveloped it. The rock shimmered, the malevolence faded, and it transformed into a smooth, ordinary piece of granite. Rin stared, her jaw dropping almost imperceptibly. Hermage craft, steeped in generations of precise rituals and complex incantations, could never achieve such a fundamental, effortless alteration of magical energy. It was akin to witnessing someone turn lead into gold with a mere thought. What was that technique? She breathed, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and professional envy. Just a little chakra cleansing, Naruto explained, tossing the now harmless rock away. Basic stuff where I come from. If the root cause is rotten, you gotta purify it from the inside out. Not just cut off the bad bits. This Grail, it needs a full system reboot, a complete cleanse. Not just a new operating system, but new hardware. Rin's mind raced, attempting to categorize, to understand. He spoke of concepts alien to magecraft, yet demonstrated power that transcended anything she had witnessed. It was infuriating, and utterly captivating. Her analytical brain buzzed with questions. And how exactly do you propose to reboot the Holy Grail? She pressed, her voice regaining its sharpness. Its existence is tied to the very ley lines of this city, to the history of this land. It is not some trinket you can simply purify. Naruto straightened, his expression serious now, the playful grin replaced by a look of unwavering determination. I don't know the exact how yet. That's why I need you guys. You know this world, its rules, its history. I bring the power, the intuition, and the ability to punch through pretty much anything. We pool our resources, Artoria's strength, your smarts and mana, my grand helper, abilities. Together, we find the core of this sickness and we burn it out. He paused, then looked directly at Rin, his sky-blue eyes piercing through her cynical facade. Look, I get it. You're cautious, you're smart, you've probably seen a lot of crazy stuff. But this isn't just about winning some wish-granting cup anymore, is it? This is about stopping something that could swallow this whole city, maybe even more. I'm not here for a wish. I'm here to save this place. You with me, are you gonna try and fight me too? His direct challenge hung in the air, uncomfortably honest. Rin's logical mind screamed caution, to analyze, to maintain distance. But something in his unwavering conviction, in the sheer force of his benevolent will, resonated with her. He wasn't manipulating her. He was simply stating the stakes, laying out his cards with a disarming frankness. She saw the genuine concern in his eyes, the absolute absence of malice. He was dangerous, yes, but not malicious. She exhaled slowly, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor in her shoulders. Her usual cunning and composure were momentarily bypassed by the raw, unvarnished truth of his words. This man was chaos incarnate, yet he was also an undeniable force for good. And in this corrupted Holy Grail war, perhaps chaos was exactly what was needed. Very well, Rin said, her voice a low murmur, her pride battling with her pragmatism. I will consider a temporary alliance. But understand, Grand Helper, if you prove to be a liability, or if your methods threaten my interests, I will not hesitate to sever ties. And I will hold you accountable for any collateral damage. Naruto's grin returned, wider than before. Deal. But seriously, Grand Helper. Just call me Naruto. We're gonna be spending a lot of time together. And collateral damage, I try to keep it to a minimum. Unless it's a villain's face. Then all bets are off. Artoria, standing silently beside them, observed the interaction. Rin, the meticulous, calculating magus, had been swayed by Naruto's sheer force of personality and demonstrable power, just as Artoria herself had been. It was an unusual, yet oddly effective, form of diplomacy. A faint, almost ghost of a smile touched Artoria's lips. The dynamics of this Holy Grail war had fundamentally shifted. The storm might be settling, but the real tempest, the grand overture of a new era, was just beginning. And with Naruto Uzumaki at its chaotic heart, nothing would ever be the same. The rain finally ceased, leaving the air fresh and cool. A sliver of pale moonlight broke through the departing clouds, illuminating the three figures. A knight, a magus, and a self-proclaimed Grand Helper, standing amidst the fading echoes of a corrupted storm. Ready to face a world far more broken than they had initially imagined. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2. The Fox and the Scholar. The scent of ozone still clung to Fuyuki City, a lingering echo of the night's grand theatrical entrance. But as dawn painted the bruised sky with streaks of hesitant orange and soft lilac, a new, far more sterile aroma began to assert itself. The crisp, almost metallic tang of advanced electronics, of meticulously filtered air, and the faint, underlying scent of arcane reagents. This was the domain of the Mages Association's Fuyuki Regional Analysis Hub. An intricate network of research facilities and observation posts cleverly disguised within mundane corporate facades and subterranean complexes. It was here, in the nerve center of cold, hard data, that the anomaly known as Naruto Uzumaki was being dissected. Deep within a reinforced sub-basement, insulated from the chaotic mana fluctuations still rippling through the city, Drive A. Riss Thorn stood amidst a symphony of whirring servers, softly glowing holographic displays, and the rhythmic click of data streams. Her workspace was a marvel of technomage-craft, a seamless fusion of ancient runic circuits and cutting-edge computational power. Aris herself was a figure of focused intensity, tall and slender, with an almost severe neatness to her sleek, dark hair pulled back into a precise ponytail. Her eyes, a piercing shade of gray, We're currently glued to a rapidly updating chart displaying an energy signature unlike anything recorded in the entirety of the Mages Association's centuries-old archives. Unprecedented, she murmured, her voice a low, precise instrument, devoid of the emotional inflection that had colored Rin Tasaka's earlier outburst. The sheer scale of the output is staggering. Sustained energy release on this level should destabilize the immediate environment entirely, yet the subject appears to be stabilizing the ambient mana, not disrupting it. A smaller, spherical drone, sleek and chrome, drifted silently beside her. Its single optical lens focused on the holographic projection of Naruto's profile, generated from the limited visual data captured during his arrival. Analysis suggests a self-regulating, highly adaptive energy matrix, drive. Thorn, the drone's synthesized voice reported, its tone devoid of curiosity. Initial probability of hostility, 67.3%. Probability of extreme environmental impact if uncontained, 98.7%. Aris waved a dismissive hand. Those probabilities are based on conventional magical parameters, Unit 77. This subject clearly defies convention. She adjusted a pair of sleek, augmented reality glasses that projected intricate schematics directly onto her vision. Observe the fluctuation patterns here. The P.E.A.K. discharge during his manifestation. It mirrors a localized temporal distortion, not a mana explosion. And the residual energy, it's not mana as we understand it. It's purer, more fundamental. Our fingers danced across a holographic keyboard, inputting complex queries, cross-referencing ancient texts with modern quantum entanglement theories. Aris Thorn was a polymath, a brilliant mind who viewed magecraft as an advanced form of physics, a series of predictable equations waiting to be solved. She saw the Holy Grail War as a chaotic, inefficient ritual, and her purpose within the Mages Association was to bring order, logic, and scientific rigor to the unpredictable world of magic. An entity like Naruto Uzumaki was either the greatest threat to that order, or the most profound discovery of her career. For Aris, the distinction was exhilaratingly thin. Access all satellite imagery, thermal scans, and clandestine surveillance data from the last 12 hours, she instructed. Locate the subject. I want real-time tracking, no matter the energy drain. This anomaly requires direct observation. Meanwhile, Naruto, Artoria, and Rin found themselves in a temporary, safe house, provided by Rin, a discreet, well-appointed apartment in a high-rise condominium, far removed from the direct epicenter of the previous night's chaos. It was comfortable, if a little too pristine for Naruto's tastes. Smelling faintly of sterile cleaning agents and expensive magical wards. So, this is laying low, Naruto commented, peering out of a heavily shielded window at the bustling city below. Looks pretty normal to me. No giant monsters chasing us, no mad bombers. Kinda anticlimactic after that grand entrance. He plopped down onto a plush, white sofa, immediately making it seem less pristine. Artoria, ever vigilant, stood by the door, her invisible blade ready. Appearances can be deceiving, Naruto. The Mages Association will be conducting extensive searches. Rin's wards provide temporary concealment. But your unique energy signature will undoubtedly draw attention from others seeking the Grail. Rin, who had been meticulously setting up a small, portable mana analyzer on a glass table, scoffed. And your casual disregard for secrecy isn't helping, Grand Helper. You radiate energy like a supernova. It's a miracle we haven't been swarmed by vengeful servants already. She glanced at him, a flicker of exasperation on her face. Though, I suppose that colossal mana burst of yours might have simply scared everyone off. Naruto grinned. Hey, it works, right? Better than sneaking around like a ninja. Though I'm good at that too. So, what's the plan, smarty pants? Artoria said you know everything about this Grail thing. Rin sighed, a long-suffering sound. The Holy Grail War is a complex ritual, Naruto. It's a battle royale between 7 masters, each commanding a heroic spirit, or servant, to fight for the omnipotent wish-granting device, the Holy Grail. However, as Artoria has noted, this particular Grail has been corrupted over generations. It no longer grants pure wishes but seeks to manifest a cursed aspect, a greater Grail, of immense, destructive power. So, it's not just a corrupted cup. It's a corrupted system trying to summon an evil giant cup monster. Naruto summarized, surprisingly astute. A crude but accurate simplification, Rin conceded, a hint of surprise in her tone. My family, the Tasakas, are one of the founding families of this Grail war, along with the Matus and the Einsburns. We've been custodians of the ritual for centuries, though its recent corruption is deeply troubling. So, the goal is to stop this evil giant cup monster from appearing, and then maybe purify the Grail so it works properly. Naruto asked, his brow furrowing slightly in thought. And how do we find it? Where's the main HQ of this corrupted cup? Rin gestured to her portable analyzer. That's the challenge. The source of the corruption is elusive. It emanates from the city's ley lines, yes, but its true core is hidden, perhaps in an extra-dimensional space, or deep within a nexus of forbidden magecraft. The Mages Association has been attempting to locate it for years. Without success. The association, huh, Naruto mused, a glint in his eye. So, they're the big magic government. They got all the intel. They are the global governing body for magecraft, Artoria confirmed. They possess vast archives of knowledge, magical artifacts, and the most skilled researchers. If anyone has information on such a pervasive corruption, it would be them. Naruto clapped his hands together. All right, so, our next stop is the Mages Association HQ. Time to pay them a friendly visit. Rin nearly choked on air. Are you insane? The Mages Association is not a public library, Naruto. They are secretive, paranoid, and highly dangerous. They classify unknown entities as threats. You, with your colossal, unregistered mana signature and your casual disregard for the masquerade, would be apprehended on sight. Or worse, dissected for research. Dissected. Naruto raised an eyebrow, a flicker of his darker, more intimidating aura briefly surfacing. It wasn't hostile, but it was enough to make Rin feel a cold shiver run down her spine. Nah, I don't think so. I'm just gonna go in, ask some questions, maybe rough up anyone who tries to stop me. It'll be fine. I'm good at charming people. And when charming doesn't work, well, he made a fist, and a tiny, almost invisible flicker of golden energy sparked around it. Rin stared at him, torn between exasperation and a growing sense of morbid fascination. He was truly unlike anyone she had ever encountered. His methods were ridiculously simplistic, yet his power was undeniably immense. He was a bull in a china shop, but a bull that could apparently reconstruct the china. No, Rin said, shaking her head. No direct confrontation. That's a recipe for disaster. We need information from them, yes. But we acquire it through finesse, through manipulation, through proper channels. I have contacts within the association. We can use them. Your contacts probably won't tell you anything about a giant sick cup monster that their bosses want to keep quiet, Naruto pointed out, his tone still casual, but with an underlying logic that was hard to refute. Look, I get it. You guys like your secrets. But this is too big for secrets. We need to hit them head on, in a way that shows we're serious but not hostile. Just firm. Artoria, having observed Naruto's subtle display of power and his logical, if unconventional reasoning, intervened. Rin. His methods, while unorthodox, yielded swift results with the corrupted entities. And his presence will not remain a secret for long, regardless of our caution. Perhaps a more direct approach, coupled with careful diplomacy, would be more efficient than prolonged espionage. Rin groaned. You two are going to be the death of me. Fine, but we do this my way. With my guidance, and no unnecessary destruction. We target the analysis division. They're the ones with the data on anomalies. And I happen to know a particularly annoying analyst who might have exactly what we need. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk touched her lips. Dr. Aris Thorn. She's insufferably brilliant and equally rigid in her scientific approach. Your unusual nature, Naruto, might just be the perfect catalyst to crack her open. Naruto grinned. Sounds like fun. So, when do we crash the party? The Mages Association's Fuyuki Analysis Hub was an imposing, sleek glass and steel structure in the heart of the city's financial district. From the outside, it appeared to be just another multinational corporation. Inside, however, lay layers of complex bounded fields. dimensional obfuscations, and a labyrinthine network of magically reinforced corridors patrolled by highly trained Magus enforcers. Naruto, dressed in a simple, borrowed hoodie and J.'s Artoria had convinced him his usual attire was too conspicuous, walked with an easy stride beside Artoria, who was similarly disguised in modern, if slightly ill-fitting, casual clothes. Rin, in her usual sharp attire, led the way, her expression a mask of cool determination. "Remember, Naruto," Rin whispered, as they approached the main entrance, "no flashy displays. No direct confrontations unless absolutely necessary. We're here for information, not a brawl. And certainly no Rasengan to the face maneuvers in a high-security Mages Association facility. This is about subtlety." Naruto gave her a thumbs up. "Got it, subtle." Like a whisper, he then proceeded to hum a loud, cheerful tune as they walked through the automated doors. Rin pinched the bridge of her nose. The lobby was a minimalist expanse of polished chrome and dark granite. Figures in crisp suits moved with quiet purpose. Naruto's senses, however, were overwhelmed. He could feel the intricate layers of wards humming beneath the floor. The subtle mana signatures of dozens of mages, the faint thrum of powerful artifacts hidden deep within the building. It was like a giant, complex chakra network, meticulously designed, but currently buzzing with an agitated, almost panicked energy. He could even discern the subtle, focused mana signature of the annoying analyst Rin had mentioned, deeper within the building. They made their way to a private, access-restricted elevator. Rin produced a sophisticated magical keycard, shimmering with arcane glyphs. As she inserted it, a sudden alarm blared, a harsh, clanging sound that echoed through the lobby. Red lights flashed, and armored Magus enforcers, their faces grim, appeared from hidden doorways, their wands already raised, crackling with defensive spells. Rin cursed under her breath. "Damn it, they must have identified your signature, Naruto. Or they're on high alert after last night." Before the enforcers could complete their incantations, Naruto sighed. So much for subtle. He didn't move. He simply extended his hand, palm open, and a ripple of golden energy, almost imperceptible, emanated from him. It wasn't an attack. It was a pressure. A profound, overwhelming, yet non-aggressive presence. The enforcers froze, their wands still raised. Their eyes widened, not in fear, but in pure, unadulterated shock. The mana in their bodies, the very essence of their magecraft, felt different. It wasn't being drained, it was being reordered. Their spells fizzled out, not from lack of power, but from an inability to coalesce. It was like trying to draw water from a perfectly still, perfectly calm lake that refused to ripple. "All right, guys," Naruto said, his voice calm, yet resonating with an authority that brooked no argument. "No need for all this. We're not here to fight. Just wanna talk to your brainy friend who's been doing all the super cool analysis. Dr. Aris Thorn, I think it was." The enforcers, still paralyzed by the strange, non-physical pressure, could only stare. Their faces pale, their instincts screamed danger, but their bodies refused to obey. This was not a fight, it was a demonstration of absolute, effortless control. Rin, witnessing this, felt a mixture of awe and exasperation. He hadn't broken their wards, he had simply persuaded them to stop working. It was a power so alien, so utterly outside the parameters of magecraft, that it bordered on conceptual. "Lead the way, then, Rin," Naruto prompted, completely unfazed by the stunned guards. "Looks like they're having a little trouble with their, spell focusing. Probably needs a little chakra alignment." Rin, still reeling from the display, nodded numbly, leading them to the elevator. The enforcers, still frozen like statues, watched them go, utterly helpless. The elevator descended, then moved horizontally through a series of increasingly reinforced tunnels, until it finally opened into a sprawling, subterranean complex that hummed with the quiet intensity of a supercomputer. This was the Fuyuki Analysis Hub's deepest level, a fortress of intellect and data. And at its heart, surrounded by shimmering holographic displays and arrays of arcane machinery, stood Drive. Aris Thorn. She didn't look up immediately. Her back was to them, her focus entirely on a complex algorithm she was debugging, muttering equations under her breath. The ambient hum of the servers created a rhythmic backdrop to her focused work. "I told you, Unit 77, the anomaly's energy signature is too dynamic for a static probability assessment, she stated, without turning. It's like trying to predict the weather by looking at a single raindrop. The subject has just breached perimeter wards with an inexplicable disruption field. My projections suggest a direct confrontation would be inefficient. Actually, Naruto said, his voice surprisingly close, we just wanted to talk. No need for all the fancy calculations. Aris froze. Her head snapped around, her gray eyes widening as she took in the sight of Naruto, casually leaning against a server rack, his hands in his pockets, and behind him, Artoria, standing stoically, and Rin, who looked like she was about to explode from nervous energy. You, Aris exclaimed, her composure momentarily fracturing. She activated a hidden risk device, but before she could initiate a security lockdown, Naruto simply held up a hand. Whoa, easy there. Doctor, no need to hit the panic button. We just wanted to ask about the Grail, and maybe borrow your super fancy maps. Rin said you're the brainy one. Naruto's easy grin was on full display. Aris stared, momentarily speechless. Her mind, accustomed to logical progressions and predictable threats, struggled to process this. He was here, in her sanctum, unchallenged, and he was smiling. How did you bypass my wards? She demanded, her voice regaining its crispness, but with an underlying tremor of disbelief. These are fourth-tier dimensional displacement fields, reinforced with quantum entanglement arrays. And you didn't even activate a single one. Naruto shrugged. They felt kinda stiff. Like they were holding onto too much mana. I just gave 'em a little nudge, loosened 'em up. They'll be fine. Probably just needed a little breathing room. Aris stared at him, then at her console, which was indeed showing perfectly stable, if temporarily inactive, ward fields. She couldn't comprehend it. It was like telling a physicist that gravity just needed a little breathing room. This is impossible, she murmured, more to herself than to him. Her scientific brain rebelled against the sheer illogicality of his actions. Yet, the evidence was right before her eyes. So, drive, Aris Thorn, right, Naruto pressed, stepping closer. Rin says you're good with data. We need to know everything about this corrupted Grail. Where's its core? What's fueling it? How do we stop it from turning Fuyuki into a giant weird soup? Aris, despite her professional shock, found herself grudgingly impressed by his directness. Most mages would engage in elaborate subterfuge or grandstanding. He simply asked, and he asked with the casual confidence of someone who expected an answer. My information is classified, she stated, regaining her professional demeanor, though her eyes still held a spark of intense intellectual curiosity as they lingered on Naruto's unusual energy signature. And you, subject, are an unscheduled, unidentified, and highly volatile anomaly. My primary directive is to contain or neutralize you, not assist you. Naruto sighed. Look, I'm trying to be nice here, Doctor. I just cleansed half the industrial district, and I saved Artoria from some nasty shadow things that were probably eating your mana supply. We're on the same team here. We just don't know it yet. He paused, then his eyes twinkled mischievously. Unless you want me to start asking my questions to your servers directly. I bet they have all the answers. And I'm pretty good with computers. Though usually, I just kinda talk to them. He gave her another, slightly more mischievous grin. Aris's eyes narrowed. You wouldn't dare. Hacking Mages Association servers is an act of war. It's not hacking if I'm just persuading them to tell me what they know, Naruto countered, raising an eyebrow. I'm telling you, computers are just like people. They just need a friendly chat. And sometimes, a firm hand. He flexed his fingers, and a faint, golden aura pulsed around them. Rin, watching the exchange, felt a nervous sweat bead on her forehead. He was bluffing, surely. But then, with Naruto. Who knew? His power seemed to defy all known rules. Aris, however, was a scientist. She valued efficiency above all else. A forced extraction of information would be messy, unpredictable, and potentially damaging to her valuable data. A direct appeal, however. What kind of answers do you seek? She asked, her tone still wary, but laced with a clear intellectual hunger. Be specific. My data is vast. Quote, I need to know the true nature of this Grail's corruption, Naruto said, his playful tone replaced by a serious one. Is it an artifact gone wrong? An ancient curse? A living entity? And more importantly, its exact geographical and metaphysical location? Where does its power truly reside? Your analysis would be faster than my own sensory sweeps, even with my abilities. Aris considered this. The questions were valid, crucial to understanding the anomaly. And Naruto's approach, while crude, was undeniably efficient. He was offering a potent, unquantifiable variable to her analytical equation. And what do I gain from this cooperation? She inquired, her gaze sharp. My research is paramount. Sharing highly classified data with an unknown entity is professionally hazardous. You get to fix the biggest magical anomaly on the planet, Naruto stated, his gaze unwavering. You get to study something completely new, something that defies your charts and graphs. And you get to be part of saving a lot of innocent lives. Plus, he leaned in conspiratorially, his voice dropping slightly, you get to work with the guy who's going to become the next Hokage. That's gotta be worth something. Right. Aris tilted her head, confusion flickering across her features. Hokage. A political title. What relevance does that have to the Holy Grail War? Naruto blinked. Oh, right, different world. Never mind. Just trust me, it's a big deal. Look, he straightened, his posture radiating a quiet power. I'm not asking for charity, Doctor. I'm offering a partnership. My power, your brain. We clean this mess up. You want to analyze something truly unique. Here I am. And when this is over, you'll have more data points than you could dream of. He extended his hand, not in a handshake, but in an open, inviting gesture. So, do we work together, or do I just persuade your servers to give me a guided tour? Aris stared at his hand. Her analytical mind, usually so clear, felt strangely muddled. This man was an enigma, a walking paradox. He threatened her, yet offered collaboration. He disregarded all protocol, yet offered the promise of solving the most perplexing mystery of her career. And the sheer, unadulterated novelty of him. She felt a flicker of excitement, a genuine intellectual thrill that had been dulled by years of predictable magecraft. Her fingers twitched. She made a decision. Very well, she said, her voice crisp, a spark of scientific curiosity now overriding her caution. A temporary, strictly professional alliance, Grand Helper. You provide the unconventional power. I provide the data, but under no circumstances will you attempt to persuade my servers directly. They are invaluable. She then turned to her console, her fingers already flying across the holographic keyboard, pulling up complex diagrams of Fuyuki's ley lines and archived reports of obscure Grail-related phenomena. The primary nexus of the corrupt Tian appears to be fluctuating between an ancient ritual site beneath the city and a recently excavated anomaly within the Meidou family estate. My analysis indicates a deep-seated, systemic rot. Naruto grinned, a genuinely happy sound. Now we're talking. See, Artoria, Rin, I told you she'd come around. And no worries, Doctor, I'll be gentle with your fancy glowing boxes. Mostly. Rin sighed, rubbing her temples. I foresee many headaches in our future. Artoria, however, offered a faint, almost imperceptible smile. Perhaps, Rin, but also, perhaps, the dawn of a new victory. She looked at Naruto, a sense of quiet confidence settling in her eyes. He is indeed unique. Aris, already immersed in her data, merely grunted in agreement. Her gray eyes, however, occasionally flickered towards Naruto, a new kind of interest. Beyond the purely scientific, beginning to take root. He wasn't just a data point, he was a phenomenon. And Dr. Aris Thorn, the meticulous scholar of magic, had just found herself a most unpredictable, yet utterly compelling, subject of study. The hum of the servers seemed to intensify, a symphony of knowledge about to be unlocked, all thanks to the loud, confident, and utterly unscientific Grand Helper, who had just walked into her carefully ordered world. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. Echoes in the dark. The air shifted as they approached. It wasn't just a change in temperature or humidity. It was a profound, suffocating alteration of atmosphere. The clean scent of the post-rain city receded, replaced by something ancient and foul, the cloying sweetness of decay. The metallic tang of stagnant blood, and a pervasive, chilling cold that seemed to seep not from the air, but from the very ground beneath their feet. This was the miasma of the Meidou household, a place where age-old witchcraft had festered into something truly hideous. Naruto, his senses acutely attuned to the subtle vibrations of the world, felt it immediately. It wasn't the agitated, tick energy of the corrupted Grail from the previous night. This was a deep, systemic illness, a constant, low-frequency hum of despair and malevolence. He could feel lives trapped within its coils, particularly one faint, trembling light struggling against an overwhelming darkness. This place, it's like a giant chakra tumor, Naruto murmured, his usual cheerful expression replaced by a somber frown. His hands instinctively clenched. Whatever's going on here, it's not good. It feels like someone's being crushed. Beside him, Rin Tasaka's face was grim, her usual sharp features drawn with an uncharacteristic weariness. The Meidou household, she stated, her voice tight, is one of the 3 founding families of the Holy Grail War. But their lineage has degenerated. They practice a vile, insect-based witchcraft, and their methods are barbaric. They are not merely custodians of the Grail, they are a festering wound upon its very concept. Artoria, walking with silent vigilance, her senses also recoiling from the oppressive aura, nodded in agreement. Their witchcraft taints the very spirit. I sense profound suffering within. Be cautious, Naruto, this place possesses a spiritual malice, more insidious than any physical threat. They stood before a sprawling, traditional Japanese estate, its dark wood weathered by time, its tiled roof silhouetted against the bruised dawn sky. Yet, there was nothing picturesque about it. The gardens were overgrown, choked with sickly, pale flora. The paper screens on the windows seemed to absorb the light, making the interior appear like a black abyss. The entire property exuded a sense of profound neglect and unspoken horror. So, these Matus, Naruto asked, his voice low, they're part of the problem with the Grail, then. This, systemic rot, Aris talked about. Rin nodded, her jaw tight. Their current head, Zuken Meidou, is an ancient, monstrous magus who has prolonged his life through abhorrent means, binding his soul to parasitic crest worms. He has been manipulating the Grail War from the shadows for decades, perhaps even centuries. And he has a granddaughter, Sakura Meidou. Her voice softened almost imperceptibly as she spoke the last name, a rare hint of vulnerability in her usual stoic demeanor. Naruto's senses honed in on the specific signature Rin had inadvertently provided. Yes, there it was. A faint, almost extinguished flame, flickering precariously amidst an ocean of darkness within the house. The crushed feeling intensified. Sakura, sounds like she's caught in the middle of all this mess. She is, Rin confirmed, her voice barely a whisper. And she is a victim of Zuken's depravities. She carries a terrible burden. Naruto's eyes narrowed, a cold fire entering their sky-blue depths. He had seen enough victims in his own life. Enough innocent people suffering under the weight of others' malice. The playful glint was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. All right, no more talking about it. We're going in. And if this Zuken guy is hurting anyone, he's gonna meet a very special kind of Rasengan. Rin stiffened. Naruto, no, you cannot simply barge into a Magus' estate. There will be wards, traps, ancient curses. And Zuken is not merely a physical opponent, his witchcraft preys on the soul. Good, Naruto retorted, taking a decisive step towards the gate. Then he'll just have to deal with a guy who can punch souls. Artoria, Rin, stay sharp. This isn't just about the Grail anymore. This is about saving someone. He didn't need to pick a lock, nor did he bother with subtlety. With a single, focused burst of chakra, he shattered the ancient, magically reinforced gate, sending splinters of wood and fragments of shattered wards scattering into the overgrown garden. The air howled in protest, as if the house itself was screaming at his intrusion. Immediately, the sickly plants in the garden writhed. Grotesque, segmented worms, some as thick as a man's arm, slithered from the earth, their multiple eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. The air filled with the buzzing of countless insects, larger and more horrific than any natural species, swarming towards them. Crest worms, Rin muttered, her expression disgusted. Zuken's familiar. They drain mana, infect, and corrode. Naruto scoffed. More like giant gross bugs. Artoria, stay close. Rin, keep an eye out for anything sneaky. I'll handle the squirmy bits. He didn't draw a weapon. He simply moved, a blur of orange and black, his hands moving with impossible speed. He wasn't just swatting them away, he was disrupting their very existence. His chakra, pure and life-affirming, collided with the worms, corrupted mana, causing them to explode into clouds of black dust, leaving behind only the clean scent of rain. It was a dance of devastating efficiency. Each movement precise, each impact annihilating. The swarm, immense as it was, began to thin, not through violence, but through utter, fundamental negation. As they pressed deeper into the garden, the house itself seemed to shift, its shadows deepening, its silence pressing down like a physical weight. The air grew colder, and a new, more profound sense of dread began to emanate from within. He's here, Artoria whispered, her hand instinctively going to her invisible blade. The Ancient One, his presence is suffocating. Naruto nodded, his eyes scanning the gloom. Yep, he feels like a really old, really grumpy chakra parasite. And he's got his hooks deep into that little light I felt. Sakura. They breached the main entrance, which seemed to groan open of its own accord, revealing a cavernous, dimly lit interior. The air was thick and heavy, smelling of dust, decay, and something else, something human and despairing. The walls seemed to sweat, unseen things scuttled in the shadows. From the depths of the house, a voice emerged, ancient and raspy, like stones grinding together. Intruders, uninvited, unwise. This is the sacred ground of the Metu. Your foolishness will be your undoing. The voice seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere, a disembodied malice. Tendrils of shadow, laced with glistening crest worms, snaked out from the floor, attempting to ensnare them. Zuken Metu, Rin spat, her voice filled with loathing. Naruto didn't answer. He simply flared his golden aura, a beacon of warmth and light that pushed back the oppressive shadows. The crest worms recoiled with hisses of agony, burning as his pure chakra touched them. All right, old man, Naruto called out, his voice clear and resonant, cutting through the eerie silence. I don't know who you are, or what you're doing, but I felt someone hurting in here. And where I come from, you don't let people suffer. So, show yourself. And if you're the one making that little light flicker, we're gonna have a serious talk about consequences. His words echoed through the house, bold and defiant. The silence that followed was thick with menace. Then, from the deepest shadows, a hunched, shriveled figure emerged. It was Zuken Metu, a nightmare made flesh. His skin was ancient and cracked, like desiccated parchment, revealing the grotesque sight of thousands of crest worms writhing beneath it. Acting as his muscles, his organs, his very life force. His eyes, sunken and black, gleamed with an ancient, malevolent cunning. He carried an ancient, gnarled staff, its tip pulsating with dark mana. A foolish, bright-eyed boy, Zuken rasped, his voice dripping with contempt. You presume to lecture Zuken Metu. You, who reek of chaotic, unrefined energy. You are a brute, an animal. You understand nothing of the depths of magecraft, of the true suffering required for the greater good. Greater good, Naruto scoffed, his eyes hardening. I know, greater good. It doesn't involve hurting innocent kids or turning your own house into a bug hotel. Where's Sakura? Let her go, now. Zuken cackled, a dry, rattling sound. The girl, she is merely a vessel. A tool. Her suffering is a necessary step towards the ultimate perfection of the Metu lineage, for the glorious manifestation of the Holy Grail. His staff slammed onto the floor, and the shadows around him deepened, coalescing into monstrous, worm-ridden constructs that lunged forward. Naruto didn't hesitate. He charged, a golden blur of furious intent. He didn't use a flashy jutsu. He used his fists, infused with raw, pure chakra. He wasn't just fighting the constructs, he was purifying them with every strike. Each punch exploded with light, disintegrating the worm flesh, leaving nothing but clean air in its wake. Artoria and Rin watched, momentarily stunned by his brutal efficiency. Artoria, ever the warrior, instinctively moved to back him up, her invisible blade ready. Rin, despite her logical mind, felt a surge of grim satisfaction as Naruto utterly demolished Zuken's vile creations. Then, from deeper within the house, a faint, barely audible sound reached Naruto's ears. A small, Desperate sob. His head snapped towards the sound. Sakura. He surged past Zuken's flailing attempts to ensnare him, moving with a speed that defied the ancient Magus's comprehension. Zuken screamed in rage, unleashing a torrent of corrupted mana, but Naruto simply created a small, focused shield of chakra, batting away the dark energy as if it were a minor inconvenience. He burst into a dimly lit, damp chamber. The air here was thick with despair, and the sickeningly sweet smell of ancient blood. In the center, chained to a pedestal, was a young woman. Her hair, once a vibrant purple, was dulled and matted. Her face pale and streaked with tears. Her clothes were torn, and her eyes, devoid of light, stared blankly ahead. On her skin, beneath the tattered fabric, he could see faint, red patterns, the telltale marks of crestworm infestation. Sakura Metu. His heart twisted. This was what he had sensed. This was the crushed light. It was worse than he had imagined. The sight of her suffering, her utter brokenness, ignited a cold, controlled fury within him. This wasn't just a battle, this was an intervention. He took a step towards her, but a shadow detached itself from the darkest corner of the room. Moving with terrifying speed and silence. A blade, glinting wickedly in the faint light, lashed out, aimed not at Naruto, but at the chains binding Sakura. "She is my quarry," a low, gravelly voice hissed. Barely a whisper. "The despair is ripe. The soul is ready." Naruto reacted instantly. He didn't engage the attacker. He simply extended a hand, and a ripple of kinetic force, precisely controlled, deflected the blade's trajectory. It scraped harmlessly against the chains. The assailant, revealed now in the faint light, was Kurohime, the same shadowy figure who had observed him earlier. Her dark, tactical gear seemed to absorb what little light there was, and her optical visor gleamed with cold indifference. She held a wickedly curved dagger in each hand, her stance low, predatory, and efficient. "Assassin," Artoria murmured, appearing behind Naruto, her invisible blade now visible, shimmering with an icy aura. Her energy signature, it is like a void. Unsettling. Kurohime ignored Artoria, her gaze fixed on Naruto, her head tilted slightly, as if assessing a new kind of prey. "You interfere. This one is slated for termination. A cleansing. The darkness will consume her anyway. Why prolong the inevitable?" Her voice, though low, carried an unnerving detachment. "Cleanse." Naruto scoffed, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. "You call this cleansing? This is despair, not purity. She's suffering, not ready for termination." He took another step towards Sakura, his golden aura pulsing, pushing back the oppressive darkness in the room. "The world is filled with suffering," Kurohime countered, her voice devoid of inflection. "It is the natural order. Some lights are meant to fade." Her daggers twitched, ready. "No, it's not the natural order." Naruto roared, his voice suddenly powerful, echoing through the chamber, rattling the very stones. "Despair isn't a natural order. It's what happens when good people give up, or when bad people get their way. And I don't let people give up. Not when I can help it." He didn't move to fight Kurohime. Instead, he reached out towards Sakura, his hand glowing with a soft, warm, golden light. Zuken, having recovered slightly, reappeared in the doorway, shrieking in rage, sending another wave of crest worms at Naruto. "You fool! Do not touch my vessel! Do not interfere with my masterpiece!" Zuken roared, his ancient eyes filled with murderous intent. Kurohime, momentarily distracted by Naruto's sudden outburst of pure, unadulterated passion, faltered. This was not the typical reaction of a combatant. This was raw, emotional conviction. Naruto ignored them both. His glowing hand reached Sakura's forehead. His touch was gentle, infinitely compassionate. He didn't cast a spell. He poured his own pure, life-giving chakra into her, slowly, carefully, seeking out the crest worms that burrowed within her, the oppressive darkness that clung to her soul. It was a painstaking, almost spiritual process. He was not destroying the worms violently. He was dissolving them, purifying them from within, gently coaxing them out, just as he had turned the corrupted rock into granite. A soft gasp escaped Sakura's lips. Her body, rigid with despair, trembled. A faint, almost imperceptible warmth began to spread through her, pushing back the cold. Her dulled eyes flickered, gaining a faint spark of life. What is this?" Zuken shrieked, his voice filled with genuine terror. His control over Sakura, cultivated over years of abuse, was slipping. He launched himself forward, a grotesque parody of a human. Desperate to stop Naruto, Artoria moved, blocking Zuken with a swift, decisive strike of her invisible blade, driving him back. "He purifies," she cried, her voice filled with a strange reverence. "He does not destroy, he mends the spirit." Kurohime watched, her optical visor reflecting the scene. Her daggers remained poised, but she did not attack. She was observing a phenomenon. Something that defied her understanding of life, death, and suffering. Her world was black and white, kill or be killed, suffer or inflict. Naruto was painting in shades of gold and vibrant blue. He was not just fighting the darkness. He was healing it. He was seeing the spark of life in a soul she had marked for oblivion. Sakura gasped again, a more substantial sound this time. Her eyes, still tear-filled, focused on Naruto's face. He was radiating warmth, hope, and an unwavering gentleness. He wasn't pitying her, he was offering her salvation. "It's okay," Naruto whispered, his voice soft, almost a lullaby. His touch unwavering. "You're safe now. Just breathe. Let it go. I've got you." A single, crystalline tear rolled down Sakura's cheek, not of despair, but of profound relief. The oppressive aura around her lightened, almost visibly. The crest worms on her skin began to shrivel, turning to dust. The raw wounds on her soul, though not fully healed, had ceased bleeding. Zuken roared, a sound of absolute defeat and fury. He launched one final, desperate surge of power, but Artoria, bolstered by Naruto's presence, met it with renewed vigor. Rin, meanwhile, having processed the impossibility of Naruto's healing method, began to analyze Sakura's fluctuating mana signature, confirming the cleansing process. Kurohime, still unmoving, watched Sakura's transformation, the returning light in her eyes. It was a sight she had never witnessed, never believed possible. A soul rescued from the precipice, not by a miracle, but by the sheer, unyielding will of one man. Her own nihilistic worldview, forged in the depths of despair, felt subtly challenged. This, grand helper, he was not just a powerful combatant, he was a force of nature, a force of life. And for the first time in a long, long time, a flicker of something akin to awe, and perhaps even a nascent curiosity about such profound light, ignited within her shadowed heart. The taste of despair in the room, so familiar to her, had just been replaced by the faint, sweet scent of a new beginning. She remained a shadow, but now, a shadow that watched with a truly distinct fascination. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. The Knight's Resolve and the Strategist's Gambit. The calm after the storm, in Fuyuki City, was a fragile illusion. Though the immediate miasma around the Meitu estate had been dispelled by Naruto's purifying touch, a deeper, more insidious threat was gathering. Dr. Aris Thorne's refined analysis, delivered with her characteristic clipped precision, confirmed the impending catastrophe. The primary lines beneath Fuyuki are experiencing a critical energy surge. Aris's voice resonated through a holographic display projected onto the sparse living room table in Rin's safe house. She stood, a spectral, shimmering figure, beside Naruto, Artoria, and Rin. The greater Grail, or rather, its corrupted core, is attempting a forced, premature manifestation. The energy readings are indicative of a massive, amorphous entity, drawing upon the city's collective despair and the residual malice of the Grail War itself. Amorphous. Naruto frowned, leaning closer to the shimmering map of Fuyuki's mana veins. So, like a giant sentient blob of bad feelings. Sounds fun. Precisely, Aris confirmed, her ghostly projection nodding. Its projected mass is immense. Estimates suggest it will emerge in the old manufacturing district, the same area where Artoria initially encountered the lesser abominations. Its purpose, based on historical magical precedents, is to consume the city's remaining spiritual energy. Completing its corrupted ritual, Rin, ever the pragmatist, tapped a finger against her chin. A direct assault would be suicidal. Such a creature, born of pure mana, would likely regenerate faster than we could inflict damage. We need a strategy, something that targets its core, its source of manifestation. Artoria, her gaze fixed on the glowing red blotch on the holographic map, gripped the hilt of her invisible blade. Her expression was grim, her noble ideals warring with the grim reality of the threat. My duty is to protect the innocent. I will face this horror directly if necessary, regardless of the odds. No, Naruto said, his voice firm, cutting through the rising tension. He placed a hand on Artoria's shoulder, a reassuring, solid presence. We're not going in blind, King of Knights. We're going in smart. This isn't about brute force. This is about precision. It's about knowing where to hit, and when. And what we hit it with. He walked over to the holographic map, his eyes scanning the data with an almost preternatural speed, absorbing information that would take even Rin hours to process. He wasn't looking at mana densities or ley line currents in the abstract. He was seeing the flow of a vast, distorted chakra network, pinpointing its weaknesses with an instinct born of countless battles against beings of similar, if differently categorized, power. Okay, Naruto began, his mind already formulating a plan, his voice taking on the commanding, yet surprisingly approachable, tone of a seasoned leader. This thing is drawing power from the city, right? Like a giant spiritual vacuum cleaner. We need to disrupt its feeding tubes first. Cut off its supply. Aris, can you identify specific nexus points where it's drawing the most mana? High-density energy zones that we can disrupt. Aris's holographic form brightened slightly. My primary analysis suggests 3 major conduits. 2 are located within the Fuyuki Industrial Zone, connecting to major spiritual currents. The third, is surprisingly close to the Fuyuki Church, tapping into what appears to be a distorted residual signature from your manifestation, Naruto. Naruto grinned. Bingo. Okay. 3 points. We hit them simultaneously, but we need to hit them with something that doesn't just damage, but purifies, something that can disrupt the fundamental composition of its energy. Artoria, your blade, can it do that? Artoria nodded, her expression resolute. Excalibur, my noble phantasm. Its light is capable of purging malevolent forces. But its usage requires significant mana, and its effectiveness against a being of such scale would be limited to precise strikes, not widespread purification. Perfect, Naruto said. Precision is exactly what we need. Rin, your mana pool and gemcraft are top-notch, right? Can you create focused mana conduits, direct large bursts of energy to specific points, or perhaps amplify existing magical currents? Rin, initially bristling at being commanded, found herself intrigued by his strategy. My gemcraft allows for the storage and rapid release of concentrated mana. I can indeed create conduits, or channel specific elemental forces, but amplifying such a colossal creature's energy, it would be too dangerous. We need to weaken it first. Not amplify its energy, amplify our energy, right into those nexus points, Naruto clarified, his eyes glinting. Think of it like acupuncture for a giant, sick chakra beast. We hit its pressure points. Artoria, you're the main offensive. You take the primary conduit in the industrial zone. Use Excalibur, but focus its purification aspect, not just raw destructive power. We want to cleanse, not just explode. Artoria's eyes widened slightly. He wasn't asking her to blindly charge, he was asking for a surgical strike. Leveraging the nuanced capabilities of her noble phantasm. It was a tactical approach she rarely encountered. Understood. My blade shall be a cleansing fire. Rin, Naruto continued, turning to her. You're with me. We'll handle the other 2 points. The Industrial Zone 1, and the one near the church. You'll be my long-range support. I'll need you to channel your mana, create a direct conduit, and feed it into my Rasengan. We're going to create a supercharged, purifying chakra blast that should disrupt those energy flows. Think of it as a spiritual defibrillator for the city. Rin's eyebrows shot up. Channel my mana directly into your Rasengan. That's an unheard of application of magecraft. It's volatile, unpredictable, and you expect me to just trust you with my entire mana reserve. Yeah, basically, Naruto said with a shrug, but his gaze was earnest, unwavering. I'll make sure it's stable. And trust me, I've handled a lot worse mana than yours. I'll be channeling my own. Think of it as a combined attack. Your precision, my power. It'll be awesome. And necessary. We need to hit these points fast, and we need to hit them hard enough to make a dent. Your gemcraft will give us the precision we need. Rin hesitated, her mind racing. It was utterly illogical. Every fiber of her Magus training screamed against such a reckless, unscientific fusion of energies. Yet, looking at Naruto's confident, determined face, at the sheer, undeniable power radiating from him, she felt a strange pull. He had an infectious confidence that bordered on insanity, but also on genius. And he hadn't been wrong yet. Fine, Rin conceded, her voice clipped, but if you explode my mana circuits, I will personally ensure your next reincarnation is as a crest worm in the Meidu family. Naruto chuckled. Fair enough. Aris, he turned to the shimmering projection, we'll need real-time data on the target's energy fluctuations. Pinpoint the exact moment of peak vulnerability when the conduits are disrupted. We need to hit the core when it's weakest. Already calibrating. Grand Helper, Aris replied, her voice crackling with a newfound professional excitement. The intellectual challenge clearly superseded her previous caution. My predictive models will provide optimal strike windows. I will project a real-time tactical overlay for all of you. Naruto nodded. Good. Artoria, you move now. Get to your position. Rin and I will follow after we set up. We hit all three at my signal. And then we go for the head. He tapped a spot on the holographic map. The center of the industrial district where the largest manifestation was predicted. Artoria gave a curt nod, a flicker of something akin to admiration in her eyes. This man was not just a powerful warrior. He was a natural strategist, commanding his forces with an innate understanding of battle, seamlessly integrating their disparate abilities. It was a quality she deeply respected. May the light of my blade guide us to victory. With that, her form shimmered, and she vanished, moving with the speed only a servant could achieve. All right, Rin, Naruto said, turning to her, his grin returning. Time to get our mana on. And seriously, no exploding my next life into a worm. I've had enough of those. Rin just rolled her eyes, but a faint, almost imperceptible smile tugged at the corner of her lips. She retrieved a handful of flawlessly cut, mana-rich gems from a hidden pocket, their facets glinting even in the dim light of the room. This was it, the unprecedented alliance, the unthinkable gamble, and somehow, with Naruto at the helm, it felt exciting. The Fuyuki Industrial District was a skeletal landscape of rusted girders and broken concrete, now made even more desolate by the encroaching manifestation of the corrupted Grail. A vast, pulsating mass of shadow and despair, the size of a small mountain, was beginning to coalesce in the heart of the ruins, its tendrils of black energy reaching out like hungry grasping arms. The air here was heavy, thick with the smell of death and something indescribably foul. Artoria Pendragon stood atop the tallest, half-collapsed factory chimney, her azure battle dress stark against the ominous backdrop. Her resolve was absolute, but the sheer scale of the corruption was daunting. She could feel its insidious influence, whispering doubts into her mind. Testing the very foundation of her chivalric code. What is honor in the face of such overwhelming blight? What is a king, when the very world succumbs to despair? She gripped Excalibur tighter, its invisible weight a comforting presence. She focused on Naruto's words, his unwavering certainty. Cleanse, not just explode. It was a subtle but profound distinction, one that resonated deeply with her own ideals. Twisted as they sometimes felt in this broken world. A flicker of light on her internal display, a small dot on the tactical overlay Aris had projected directly into her vision. The first conduit. She took a deep breath, focusing her internal mana, preparing Excalibur. Meanwhile, a few kilometers away, near the Fuyuki Church, Naruto and Rin stood at their designated nexus point. This location, oddly, felt less overtly corrupted, but radiated a deep, unsettling hum, like a parasitic twin feeding off the residual energy of Naruto's arrival. Rin had meticulously laid out several rare, large gems on the ground, connecting them with intricate mana channels she drew with her fingers, sketching glowing glyphs on the damp concrete. Are you sure about this, Naruto? Rin asked, her voice taut with concentration as she channeled her own considerable mana into the array of gems. The air around them began to thrum with raw energy, directly feeding my mana into a foreign energy source of this magnitude. It's reckless beyond measure. The backlash could incinerate my entire circuit network. I got you, Rin. Trust me, Naruto replied, his stance firm, his eyes closed in deep concentration. He was already in sage mode, a subtle, golden glow emanating from his skin, his eyes shifting to reveal a distinctive cross-like pattern on his irises. Natural energy, drawn from the earth and sky, flowed into him, mixing with his colossal chakra reserves, making him a living conduit of pure, unadulterated life force. Just feed it in. I'll handle the calibration. Think of it as a really big, really precise, chakra battery. He extended his palm, and a Rasengan began to form, not a blue sphere, but a vortex of swirling golden-green light, humming with an immense, palpable power. As Rin channeled her mana into it through her gem-laced conduits, the Rasengan pulsed, growing in size, becoming unstable, threatening to tear itself apart. It's overloading, Rin cried, a bead of sweat tracing a path down her temple. My circuits are screaming. I can't maintain the flow. Hold it, Naruto commanded, his voice raw with effort. He gritted his teeth, his sage mode becoming even more intense. He wasn't just absorbing, he was harmonizing. He was taking Rin's refined, delicate mana, and integrating it with his raw, untamed chakra, forcing it into a stable, focused form. It was a feat of energy manipulation that defied all magical laws, a fusion of two vastly different systems. Slowly, agonizingly, the golden-green Rasengan stabilized. It pulsed with a controlled fury, no longer threatening to explode, but now a beacon of pure, concentrated energy, humming with immense destructive and purifying potential. Now, Aris's voice echoed in their minds, projected telepathically. Target 2, primary vulnerability window open, Artoria. Now, at that instant, Artoria unleashed Excalibur. Not a wide, sweeping blast, but a focused, piercing beam of brilliant light, a pure lance of incandescent energy. It tore through the oppressive air, striking the first mana conduit in the industrial zone with surgical precision. A deafening roar ripped through the district as the corrupted conduit exploded. Not in a shower of destruction, but a burst of radiant purification. The black tendrils of the amorphous monster recoiled, shriveling back as if burned by holy fire. The air itself seemed to shudder, cleansing itself of the pervasive stench. And now us, Rin. Naruto bellowed, his voice filled with adrenaline. He thrust his hand forward, unleashing the massive, combined Rasengan. It wasn't a projectile, it was a wave of pure, purifying force, a golden-green tsunami of energy that slammed into the two remaining conduits. The impact was cataclysmic. The ground trembled, and the remaining corrupted ley lines shrieked in agony as their connection to the monstrous entity was violently severed. Two more explosions of blinding light erupted, washing over the landscape like cleansing waves. The massive, amorphous entity in the heart of the district recoiled, its form thrashing, its roars of rage turning into screams of pain. Cut off from its power sources, it began to shrink, its malevolent presence weakening. It's open. The core is exposed, Aris's voice screamed, laced with triumph. Naruto, its heart is vulnerable. Now, go for the kill. On it, Naruto yelled. He didn't wait. He launched himself forward, a golden blur, moving with impossible speed towards the thrashing, dissolving monstrosity. Rin, still panting from the immense mana drain, watched him go. A mix of exhaustion and awe on her face. Her circuits were aching, but exhilaration coursed through her. She had contributed to that impossible, world-changing strike. Artoria, having seen her own target purified, watched with wide eyes as Naruto moved. He was a force of nature, a golden comet streaking towards its prey. He was not merely a warrior, he was an embodiment of will, a pure, unyielding force for justice. He reached the monster, which was still thrashing weakly, its form beginning to unravel into dark smoke. He didn't use another Rasengan. He simply slammed his fist into its fading core, a precise, calculated strike imbued with pure, unadulterated senjutsu. The monster didn't explode, it simply dissipated. The foul stench vanished, replaced by the crisp, clean scent of a newly washed world. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. The sun, finally breaking through the clouds, cast its golden rays over the now empty, but cleansed, industrial district. It was over. The primary threat had been neutralized. Naruto stood amidst the dust, panting slightly, his sage mode dissipating, leaving him looking tired but triumphant. He flexed his hands. All right. One giant sick blob of bad feelings, neutralized. Time for ramen. The aftermath was a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Rin, after stabilizing her mana circuits, had joined Naruto and Artoria in the industrial district. Dr. Aris Thorne's holographic projection hovered excitedly, detailing the exact metrics of the entity's disintegration, her voice alight with the thrill of unprecedented data. Remarkable, Aris exclaimed, her voice buzzing with professional satisfaction. The energy signature of the core simply ceased to exist. Your chakra cleansing, Naruto, is a fundamental negation of magical energy, not mere destruction. It rewrites its very composition. The implications for counter-magecraft are revolutionary. So, it's gone for good? Naruto asked, wiping a smudge of dust from his cheek. For good, Aris confirmed. The manifestation ritual was utterly broken. The lesser Grail is inert. However, she added, her projection frowning, the underlying corruption in the greater Grail remains. We have cut off its food supply. But its root cause persists. One step at a time, Naruto said with a weary but satisfied grin. Now, about that ramen. Rin, leaning against a broken wall, watched Naruto. He was casually discussing food after single-handedly dismantling a city-threatening entity. It was absurd, and utterly charming. Her professional and personal boundaries felt like they had been dismantled right alongside the corrupted monster. She had channeled her mana into him, trusted him with her very magical core, and he had delivered, not just effectively, but spectacularly. He had taken her precise, disciplined mana and fused it with his wild, untamed energy to create something greater than the sum of its parts. It was a profound level of collaboration she had never experienced. A partnership born in the crucible of battle. Artoria, standing beside Naruto, felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Her sword, her knightly code, had been tested, and through Naruto's guidance, refined. He had shown her a path beyond mere destruction, a way to purify rather than simply slay. He was a leader unlike any she had followed, inspiring not through command, but through innate competence, unwavering courage, and an infectious optimism that cut through even the deepest despair. Her initial respect for his power had deepened into a profound admiration for his character. And admiration, for a knight, was a powerful, dangerous emotion, especially when coupled with the camaraderie of shared victory. Later that day, back at Rin's safe house, Naruto insisted on an informal debriefing, which largely consisted of him badgering Rin for food and suggesting increasingly outlandish ways to persuade the Mages Association to hand over more data. So, Artoria, Naruto began, as Rin grudgingly prepared some instant noodles, the closest she had to ramen. You were pretty awesome out there. That light sword of yours is no joke. But you were worried, weren't you? Artoria, sitting upright and regal even on a cushion on the floor, paused. My ideals were challenged. The sheer despair emanating from the corruption tested my conviction. I questioned if my efforts were truly meaningful against such a pervasive blight. Naruto nodded. I get that. Happens to the best of us. But you still pushed through. You didn't give up. That's what matters. That's what makes a true king. He smiled warmly at her. You embody honor, Artoria. Don't let a bunch of glorified goo make you doubt yourself. Artoria looked at him, her sapphire eyes thoughtful. He spoke with such conviction, such simple truth. He saw beyond her servant status, beyond her legend, to the core of her being. His belief in her was palpable, and profoundly uplifting. A warmth spread through her chest, deeper than tea. The temporary heat of the cleansing spell. He then turned to Rin, who was meticulously adding a single, perfectly sliced green onion to the instant noodles. And Rin, your mana control was insane. I mean, seriously, top-notch. You really stepped up. I knew I could trust you not to blow us both up. See, told you it would work. Rin stiffened, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. It was merely an efficient application of mana, Grand Helper. And your reckless plan almost resulted in a catastrophic overload. Don't think for a moment that your outlandish methods are scientifically sound. Yet, despite her protests, her voice held a note of pride she couldn't quite conceal. He had recognized her skill, praised her contribution, and treated her as an indispensable part of the team. For a fiercely independent magus like Rin, that kind of acknowledgement was a potent currency. She was annoyed, yes, but also undeniably pleased. Naruto chuckled, slurping his instant noodles with gusto. Whatever you say, Rin. All I know is, we kicked that thing's butt. And we did it together. That's what counts. He looked at them both, his eyes full of genuine camaraderie and something more. We make a pretty good team, don't we? The knight, the scholar, and me. Artoria offered a rare, genuine smile, a soft, beautiful sight. Indeed, Naruto Uzumaki. Indeed, we do. Rin, despite herself, found a small smile playing on her lips too. She watched him, this impossible, frustrating, yet undeniably brilliant force of nature. He brought out the best in them, pushed them beyond their limits, and made them confront their own rigidities. In the chaos of the Holy Grail War, he was a steady anchor, radiating a powerful, infectious optimism. He was dangerous, reckless, but he was also profoundly good, immensely capable, and utterly charismatic. The world had just grown significantly more unpredictable, and Rin Tasaka, for the first time in a long time, felt a thrill that wasn't just about strategy or power, but about the genuine human connection forging in the fires of a shared, impossible mission. The bond, initially forged in mutual respect for competence, was slowly, subtly, intertwining with something far more personal. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. Unveiling Shadows and Hidden Truths. The ephemeral euphoria of victory, a fleeting respite from the omnipresent dread of the Holy Grail War, faded with the first full light of the new day. While the immediate threat of the amorphous monster had been neutralized, the underlying illness, the pervasive, ancient corruption of the Greater Grail, still pulsed beneath Fuyuki. It was a silent, insidious malignancy, far more dangerous than any overt manifestation. Naruto, with his unnaturally acute senses, felt it like a phantom ache in the city's very bones. The core of the Greater Grail, the true source of its decay, remains elusive. Aris Thorn's voice, now crisper and more immediate, filled Rin's living room. Her holographic projection stood beside a complex, three-dimensional topological map of Fuyuki's ley lines, projected from a compact, highly advanced device she had brought directly to the safe house. Unlike her previous spectral appearance, her form was now solid, her presence a testament to her growing trust in Naruto. She had chosen to leave her secure facility and work directly with them, a monumental shift in her professional protocol. My analysis indicates a nexus of ancient, distorted mana, far predating the established Holy Grail Wars, Aris continued, gesturing with precise movements to a swirling, dark anomaly on the map. Deep beneath the city, it's as if something parasitic has rooted itself into the Grail's foundational structure, twisting its purpose over centuries. Its energy signature suggests a deliberate, meticulous corruption, not a random malfunction. Naruto studied the map, his brow furrowed. So, someone did this. Someone intentionally messed with the Grail system. Rin, leaning over the display, her expression thoughtful, nodded slowly. It is a plausible theory. Ancient mage families often concealed profound secrets, rituals designed to transcend generations. If a powerful mage, or even a collective, wished to manipulate the Grail's outcome or achieve something beyond its stated purpose, they might seek to pervert its very nature. Artoria, ever vigilant, stood near the window, gazing out at the recovering city. Such a perversion would be an act of profound heresy against the sanctity of the ritual. It speaks of an immense hunger for power, or perhaps a twisted form of salvation. Either way, Naruto said, his eyes narrowed, we need to find the source. This, systemic rot, won't just go away. Where does this map say we should start looking for this root? Aris tapped a point on the holographic map, a faint blue glow marking the location. My algorithms suggest a convergence of anomalous mana readings beneath the old Fuyuki church itself, extending downward into a network of forgotten tunnels and ancient catacombs. Historical records, even those heavily redacted by the Mages Association, mention a series of sacred vaults beneath the original construction, predating even the church's current iteration. Beneath the church, Naruto mused. That figures. Always the places of light hiding the darkest secrets. All right, Artoria, Rin, Aris, looks like we're going spelunking. Time to dig up some old bones and even older secrets. Rin grimaced. Catacombs. They'll be riddled with ancient wards, dead mana pockets, and potentially, guardians. This is not a straightforward excavation. Naruto. No problem. Naruto chirped, his grin returning. I'm good at excavating. And if there are guardians, we'll just give them a good talking to. Or a good punching to, if they're stubborn. He looked at Aris. You coming with us, Doc? Your super brain might come in handy for deciphering ancient hocus pocus. Aris hesitated for a moment, her gray eyes glinting with a mix of apprehension and intellectual hunger. Her usual protocol involved remote observation and data analysis, not direct participation in subterranean expeditions. Yet, the prospect of studying the anomaly firsthand, in its own domain, was a temptation she found increasingly difficult to resist. My analytical tools would indeed be more effective on site, she conceded, a subtle shift in her posture betraying her burgeoning excitement. However, my combat capabilities are limited. Don't worry about it, Naruto said, giving her a reassuring pat on the shoulder that, to her surprise, felt comforting. You just focus on the brainy stuff. We'll handle the muscle. Artoria's got your back, and I've got everyone's back. That's how we roll. The Fuyuki Church, usually a solemn place of worship, now felt like a gate to an unknown, ominous realm. The heavy oak doors creaked open with a mournful groan, revealing a cool, damp interior. Aris, having brought a compact, high-powered sensor array, immediately began scanning the floor. There, she stated, pointing to a section of the nave. A displacement field, cleverly disguised. It hides a concealed staircase leading downwards. The mana signature is archaic, layered with obscuring runes. Naruto stepped forward. Let me guess, it's too complex to dispel conventionally. Precisely, Rin confirmed. Any attempt to force it open would trigger a cascade of defensive counterspells, potentially collapsing the entire structure. We need to decipher the activation sequence, or find a bypass. Naruto simply grinned. Or, he said, and with a surprisingly gentle touch, he placed his palm on the floor. A faint, almost invisible shimmer of golden chakra emanated from his hand, not attacking the ward, but harmonizing with it. He wasn't breaking it, he was coaxing it. He subtly manipulated its internal flow, finding the precise resonant frequency that caused it to disengage, not collapse. With a low groan of ancient stone, a section of the floor slowly receded, revealing a spiral staircase leading down into utter darkness. A blast of cold, musty air, laden with the scent of damp earth and something indefinably ancient, wafted up. Remarkable, Aris murmured, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and bafflement. A non-destructive bypass. His energy manipulation is truly alien. Lead the way, Naruto, Artoria commanded, her blade already shimmering into existence, ready for the unknown. They descended into the gloom. The air grew heavier, colder, and the silence pressed in around them, broken only by the drip of unseen water. The staircase spiraled down for what felt like an impossible distance, eventually opening into a vast, sprawling network of catacombs. Walls of rough-hewn stone, etched with ancient, forgotten symbols, stretched into the oppressive darkness. Naruto, his senses fully activated, led the way. He could feel the pulse of corrupted mana beneath his feet, hear the faint whispers of tormented spirits trapped in the stone, and sense the unseen pathways that wound through the labyrinth. His instincts were his compass in this spiritual darkness. The core anomaly is deeper, Aris's voice resonated, her portable scanner glowing with complex readings. The readings are growing stronger. And, I'm detecting intermittent, highly complex magical signatures that do not match any known lineage. They are predatory. As they delved deeper, the atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive. They passed alcoves filled with ancient, desiccated remains, seemingly guarding forgotten tombs. Some of these remains flickered with dark, residual mana, attempting to lash out, but Naruto's presence, his pure chakra, immediately neutralized them, causing them to crumble to dust. Suddenly, Naruto stopped, his eyes narrowed, focusing on a patch of deeper shadow ahead. Someone's here, he muttered. Not a guardian, something else, something that likes to watch. From the shadows, a figure detached itself, appearing with a chilling lack of sound. It was Kurohime, her dark attire blending almost perfectly with the gloom, her daggers glinting in the faint light cast by Aris's scanner. She stood motionless, her optical visor reflecting their forms, an enigmatic silhouette of quiet menace. Intruders, Kurohime's voice, a low, gravelly whisper, seemed to vibrate from the very stone. You delve where you do not belong. These secrets are best left undisturbed. Artoria immediately readied Excalibur. Assassin, you haunt these depths. Are you an ally of the corruption? Kurohime turned her head slightly, her gaze lingering on Naruto. Ally. I am neither ally nor enemy. I am observer, cleaner. This world, this city, it seeks a natural balance. This corruption is an imbalance. But so is your light. Her gaze was cold, analytical, yet tinged with a subtle, unreadable curiosity. You followed us, Rin stated, her voice sharp. What do you want? Observation, Kurohime replied, her voice flat. This anomaly. She gestured vaguely at Naruto. He disrupts the natural flow of despair. The deeper you go, the more resistant the darkness becomes. You will find horrors that will break lesser men. You will face truths that should remain buried. And you're just here to watch us break. Naruto challenged, his voice surprisingly calm. Perhaps, Kurohime admitted, her voice devoid of emotion. Or perhaps, I am here to ensure the purity of the end result. If the corruption is cleansed, the balance shifts. If you fail, the balance shifts again. My purpose is to ensure the shift is clean. Less messy. Naruto regarded her for a long moment. He felt no direct malice from her, only a profound detachment, a sense of pragmatic nihilism. But there was also a raw power, a primal connection to the shadows themselves. And he sensed, beneath the cold exterior, a flicker of something else, something curious about him. All right, Naruto said, surprising his companions. Look, Kurohime, assassin. Whatever you want to be called. We're going down there. We're going to fix this. If you want to watch, fine. If you want to help, even better. But if you try to stop us, or hurt anyone who's not part of this corruption, then we're going to have a serious problem. And trust me, you don't want a problem with me. His voice hardened slightly, a subtle display of underlying power. Kurohime remained silent, her visor reflecting his resolute face. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, she sheathed her daggers. I am intrigued. Your path is unpredictable. Proceed. But be warned, boy of light. The Meitu secrets are not merely physical. They prey on the mind, on memory, on doubt. She melted back into the shadows, becoming invisible once more, though her presence lingered, a silent, unseen companion. Well, that was illuminating, Rin muttered, adjusting her glasses. She's either a highly dangerous neutral party, or an incredibly subtle enemy. She's scared, Naruto stated simply, looking at the spot where Kurohime had vanished. Not of us, but of what we're about to stir up. And she's intrigued by something in me. That means she's not completely lost to the darkness. They pressed onward. The air grew colder, the oppressive silence punctuated by faint, unsettling whispers that seemed to emanate from the very stone. Aris's scanner pulsed wildly, indicating an immense concentration of ancient, distorted mana just ahead. They entered a vast, circular chamber, its ceiling lost in shadow. In the center, a huge, intricately carved stone altar pulsed with a sickening, greenish-black light. Ancient, desiccated corpses, some in ceremonial robes, lay sprawled around it, their forms twisted in silent agony. Runes, centuries old, covered every surface, glowing faintly with residual, malevolent power. This was clearly the nexus Aris had identified. The source, Aris breathed, her voice hushed with reverence and a touch of horror. It's vast, and it's connected to every ley line in the city. This isn't just a corrupted grail, it's a colossal ritual designed to channel the very despair of Fuyuki. As Naruto stepped closer to the altar, a faint, high-pitched hum began to fill the chamber. The runes on the walls flared, and the very air seemed to thicken, swirling with shadowy tendrils. These weren't physical attacks, they were psychological. Visions flickered in Naruto's mind. Distorted images of past failures, of friends lost, of the crushing loneliness he had once known. The whispers intensified, weaving a tapestry of doubt and self-recrimination. You failed. You were alone. You are still alone. Your light will be consumed. Artoria gasped, clutching her head. Her mind was assaulted by spectral images of a burning Camelot, of her knights falling, of her own perceived failures as a king. Rin staggered, her breathing shallow, her mind assailed by visions of her own family's long-held secrets, the sacrifices, the compromises, the cold realities of magecraft. Even Aris, shielded by her analytical detachment, felt a profound unease, her logical mind struggling to process the flood of negative data. But Naruto stood firm, though his face was etched with strain. The visions assailed him with merciless precision, seeking out the deepest scars on his soul. He saw Sasuke's betrayal, Jiraiya's death, the crushing weight of the Fourth Great Ninja War. The moments of utter despair when he felt he could not carry on. The whispers grew louder. You were an outcast. You were hated. You carried the monster. You were a monster. You will always be alone. He gritted his teeth, his golden aura flaring, pushing back the oppressive mental assault. He had faced down psychological attacks before, illusions that preyed on his deepest fears. But this felt more pervasive, more fundamental. It was trying to strip away his very identity, to extinguish his light. Naruto, Artoria cried, breaking through her own torment, seeing the immense strain on his face. Resist. Focus on your resolve. It's trying to break me, Naruto grunted, his voice strained. Trying to make me believe, I'm still alone. Still the monster. A flicker of genuine vulnerability, raw and exposed, crossed his face. For all his bravado, for all his power, the echoes of his childhood, of a time when he truly was alone and hated, were potent weapons against him. He closed his eyes, forcing himself to remember. Not the pain, but the moments of connection. The hand on his shoulder. The encouraging words. The shared laughter. The faces of those who believed in him, who loved him. He was not alone. Not anymore. He never truly was. He opened his eyes, and they blazed with a fierce, defiant light. No, he roared, his voice cutting through the whispers, his chakra flaring with renewed intensity. Purifying the very air. I'm not alone. Never again. And I'm not a monster. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm going to save this world, just like I saved mine. The malevolent whispers recoiled, dissolving like smoke before a gale. The visions shattered. The oppressive atmosphere in the chamber lightened, though the altar still pulsed with its dark energy. Naruto, though visibly shaken, stood tall, his determination unwavering. Kurohime, having materialized silently from the shadows, stood a short distance away, her optical visor fixed on Naruto. She had seen the raw despair, the deep-seated fears that had assailed him. She had expected him to break, to succumb to the psychological onslaught, as so many others had in these accursed depths. But he hadn't. He had fought back, not with force, but with the sheer, unyielding power of his own spirit, with the memory of his connections. Her cold, analytical gaze held a flicker of something new now, not just intrigue, but a burgeoning admiration, a quiet, almost imperceptible recognition of true, unyielding strength. He had laid bare a profound vulnerability, yet emerged from it stronger. This was a depth she had not anticipated. He was, in essence, truly unyielding. This altar, Naruto said, his voice now steady, though slightly hoarse, it's directly connected to the greater Grail's corruption. It's like a giant battery, funneling all the despair into one place. We need to sever its connection, or cleanse it completely. Aris, recovering her composure, scanned the altar. My analysis suggests it's anchored by a series of ancient, interlocking seals. Breaking them would be catastrophic. Purifying them, it would require an immense, continuous infusion of pure mana, targeting each seal simultaneously. How many seals? Naruto asked, his mind already working on a solution. 4 primary anchors, Aris confirmed, each radiating immense, dark mana. Naruto looked at his allies. Artoria, resolute, her blade ready. Rin, her intelligence already calculating the complexities. Aris, her scientific mind buzzing with possibilities. And in the periphery, the silent, observing shadow of Kurohime, now watching with something akin to respect. All right, Naruto said, a determined glint in his eyes. 4 seals. Sounds like a party. Artoria, you take one. Rin, you pick another. Aris, you tell us the exact spots. And maybe find a way to help me with the last 2. And if Kurohime wants to actually help instead of just watching, she can take the 4th. We hit them all at once. And then, we purify this whole rotten mess, once and for all. He looked around the chamber, at the ancient malevolence, at the lingering shadows, and then back at his companions, his true family forged in the fires of this insane war. His grin, genuine and unburdened, returned. Let's kick this corruption's butt. Kurohime, from her hidden vantage point, remained silent, but her internal assessment of the Grand Helper shifted dramatically. He had faced his own darkness and emerged. He was not just a powerful fighter, he was a profound, unyielding force for light. The idea of helping him, of joining his chaotic but righteous path, no longer felt illogical. It felt inevitable, a new kind of purpose, slowly, subtly, beginning to solidify in the heart of the shadow. Chapter 5 End. The End. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.